Hello Jumpstop, Coach Clint here. Welcome to another episode of our Soundbites. Jumpstop, let me share something that I consider to be one of the important aspects for me being a basketball coach. Because my tagline will always be attitude before skills, and right training is everything. It just so happened that there's one time in one of my social media, I read this post about players disrespecting their basketball coaches. The post read like this: the more and more I'm watching basketball this year, I'm seeing players yelling back at the coaches. And it concerns me as a basketball coach. If I will be the coach, I will bench anybody for talking back. The more I see some of these great coaches get yelled at, and the player still goes out on the floor, the more I wonder if my ways are getting too outdated. It's very sad, right? It's very sad. Because even me, if that is going to happen in my part, I will really bench the player. I don't care if he's going to play on that night or not. I don't care if their parents are going to yell at me after the game. Because for me, attitude really matters. It's very sad because whether we like it or not, whether we believe it or not, it's happening. Even in professional leagues, professional players yelling back at their coaches, professional players answering in high tone to their coaches, that when you're going to hear it, it's very obvious. It's the sound of disrespect is there. And it's no wonder also that some of these grassroots basketball players are doing it to their coaches, especially when that player happens to be the best player of the team. If you were listening to my previous episode, I already discussed this about letting players play just because we wanted to win, doing everything that we can just because we wanted to win. And it's wrong, because we are sending a wrong message, not just to that player but to everybody who is in the team and to the people who's watching us. Because we can't ignore the fact that there are people around us that believes in us. If that player don't believe and trust us, there are people who really put their trust upon us. So it's very sad to hear that it is happening. And sometimes we wonder why these players are doing this. That's why the key question is always why. Right? We have to ask why these players are doing it. I thought this would be the first question would come and to our discussion. But when I read the comments on that post, it seems that people reacted on a different way. Instead of asking why, most of them said things like, there needs to be a level of respect shown to coaches by the players. There's also a comment that says, you might not respect the coach, but you must respect the position of coach. I totally agree with those comments, but it's funny. It's interesting to know how many of today's adults or coaches demand respect for their position, but don't feel like they need to show respect to anyone else. Seriously. Just look at most adults at youth basketball tournaments, in any tournaments in our level. There are coaches screaming at referees, bad-mouthing other coaches, saying bad things to other coaches, yelling at kids in front of their peers, parents, spectators. It's interesting to know the rise of the disrespectful athlete has lined up perfectly with the incredibly steep high rise of disrespectful adults. You know, in the eyes of a child, whatever the adult is doing, it's always right. So we have to be careful with that. You know, so don't be surprised. Don't be surprised. Many people won't like me pointing out the hypocrisy, and I expect a lot of comments from upset people today. But it's the truth, and I think it's important to hold adults accountable too, not just the players. Today's basketball tournaments are packed with the most disrespectful adults of all time, parents and coaches. So it should be no surprise to anyone that players are starting to show less respect. We must set a better example. Once we take the lead on this, players will follow. Just something to think about, because it's very sad. And I just hope we can all avoid this and let this thing never happens again. I hope you were able to take something from our discussions today. And more, check out our other episodes and share your thoughts about it. Again, thank you everyone for listening, and stay safe, guys.